Hello, this is Mash It and Smash It, but you can call me Mash or Mash It for short. While I am busy plotting my revenge against a certain feline idea thief, I don't care how much more successful her channel is than mine. I think now is about as good a time as any to go back to the past. No, I said the past. I guess you could say I'm late to the party with this, but I just recently finished watching this entire series, and with its long-awaited conclusion still fresh in people's minds, it's time to talk about Samurai Jack. Created by Genndy Tartakovsky, who is also known for Dexter's Laboratory and working on a number of notable animated works like the Powerpuff Girls, this show aired on Cartoon Network from 2001 to 2004, being cancelled after 4 seasons before getting revived for one final season on Adult Swim in 2017. In medieval Japan, the evil demon Aku escapes from imprisonment and enslaves the people of a royal village. The burden of stopping him falls on the kingdom's young prince, who is sent away across the world to train in a variety of combat techniques. Once he has grown, he receives the magic sword, the only weapon capable of destroying Aku. As he comes very close to vanquishing the demon, said demon pulls out one last trick and teleports the samurai into the distant future of a world ruled by Aku. Taking on the name Jack, the samurai looks for a way to return to the past and destroy Aku for good. Of course, once again, the opening sums it up better than I could, but for fear of getting struck by the copyright bots without a weapon to defend myself, I'll leave it at that. The story is very simple and easy to follow. No need to go into technical stuff or to make up some overly complicated rules. It's just good versus evil with a little time travel thrown into the mix. The only rules one might have to follow are how Jack's weapon operates, but it never dwells on it too long. Overall, you can come into this show from any episode and be able to keep up just fine. The animation is really something special. Very few cartoons put so much effort into looking as cinematic as possible, with some of the best action scenes ever animated, and even some slow moments to take in the environment. Sometimes it's the little details, like the rustling of leaves and the running of water, that truly portray the size and scope of the world of this show. And speaking of which, the world is one of the most unique you will ever see. Despite being in a dystopian future with all sorts of high-tech cities, there is still also plenty of nature to explore. So right off the bat, there's one thing this bad future has to offer that our actual present does not. But it doesn't stop there. Due to the nature of this future, there is pretty much no limit to what kinds of environments Jack can find himself in, and what kind of forces he could find himself dealing with. One episode he'll be in the desert facing all sorts of fantastical creatures, and the next he'll be up against a mind-controlling DJ at a rave. No, I didn't make that up. That really happened. And then there are the designs of both the world and the characters. Everything looks angular and cartoonish, and yet at the same time very artistic and beautiful. The locations are all sights to behold, each in their own unique ways. Every set looks like a painting, and the characters all have such creative designs, whether they be humans, creatures, or one of hundreds of alien species. Which brings us to the characters themselves. Jack is your typical hero, who has a keen sense of honor, but is prone to naivete about the world around him, as well as fits of anger when things go wrong, the latter of which comes back to hurt him from time to time. This leads to some occasional inner struggles, which he usually overcomes with a hint of character development. Another charming part of his character is his reaction to the strange world around him, thanks to his rather stoic nature. His voice actor, Phil Lamar, does an excellent job bringing these character traits to life. Obviously, he is also a very tough fighter. Even without the sword, he has proven to be a force to be reckoned with, taking down entire armies of warriors and machines alike. Probably the main criticism I have for his character is that at times he seems a little too perfect and overpowered, but it's balanced out well enough with all of the pre-mentioned flaws. In the end, Jack still makes for a very memorable and likable protagonist. Of course, the character that steals the whole show is the villain, Aku. He is just the perfect mix of sinister and hysterical, which makes him the perfect foil to the good-natured, stoic protagonist. His voice actor, the late Mako, was the perfect choice to bring this character to life, hamming it up while also creating an imposing persona. He is also notable for getting under the hero's skin, pulling constant tricks on him to impede his goal to return to the past. Truly one of the most memorable cartoon villains of all time. And those two are pretty much the only major characters in this show. While this show has a slew of memorable one-off characters, most of them aren't seen again, at least for a while, with one exception. The Scotsman. Like Aku, this character steals every scene he appears in. He too makes a perfect foil to Jack, with his constant ranting and arrogance. Despite this, he turns out to be a pretty loyal friend with Jack, and even saves him on a few occasions. His voice actor, John DiMaggio, breathes so much life into this character just like he does with Bender from Futurama and Jake from Adventure Time. Every episode of this show is like an homage to all sorts of media. It could pay homage to Seven Samurai in one episode, and spend several others paying homage to all of the Mad Max movies. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. Very few of the episodes feel like filler. Each one of them is either a loving tribute to older media, or a special episode where Jack learns an important lesson. And with multiple unique characters being encountered along the way, there isn't a single episode not worth watching. One small flaw that might turn some fans away from this show is the pacing. While there's plenty of heart-racing action, it often builds up to said action with some very slow moments of ambience. These moments are usually outside in the more natural locations, giving you time to take in the environment. When I first saw this show as a young adolescent, these scenes did bore me a bit, but I did learn to appreciate the art of this show on display. Regardless of how I felt about them, they were worth getting through once the story picked back up. So with that in mind, this show won't be for everyone. If you are easily bored, I would not recommend it. But if you appreciate the slow build-up of beautiful artwork to awesome high-adrenaline fight scenes throughout a high journey filled with great stories and memorable characters, then I recommend, no, implore you to check this series out. And now, before I give my final rating for this show, I must now inevitably talk about the final season, and the big, epic finale. It's good. Just good. Okay, look. Here's the thing. There are a lot of things in this season that I really liked. The action was as amazing as ever. There were plenty of memorable characters, like the very entertaining assassin Scaramucci. The subplot of Jack's inner struggle over his guilt of not succeeding in his quest is one of the most brilliant and heartbreaking character arcs I've ever seen in a cartoon. And the overall story of Jack losing his sword, facing off against a cult of young women that worship Aku, and finding his strength again with the help of his new ally and all of the people he helped throughout his journey, made for what could have been the perfect conclusion to this series. So what went wrong? Well, to be perfectly honest, Ashi. I feel bad for blaming her because I find her a pretty likable character as well. She undergoes some great character development, starting off as a cold-blooded assassin sent to kill Jack with the other daughters of Aku. But thanks to Jack sparing her, gradually sees the error of her ways and becomes a very helpful ally. And once again, Tara Strong is at the top of her game in voicing this character and portraying these many turns in her story arc. What I don't like about her is when the romantic subplot kicks in. Granted, I'm not against this pairing, as she and Jack share some good moments together. I think that had they paced it out better, this could have worked. But as it is, it just comes totally out of nowhere, and leads to some rather cringe-inducing moments of sexual tension. And then after an intense fight against a monster that has a brief moment of Ashi nudity, because why not, they just suddenly start making out to a Dean Martin song. Huh. I didn't know Dean Martin even existed in this universe. But the biggest crime this character commits on the story is robbing it of the truly satisfying conclusion that everyone has been waiting 13 years for. Does Jack return to the past? Yes. Does he destroy Aku, thus undoing the future he was stuck in? Yes. Does it tie up all loose ends and have a happy ending? Yes. Is it great seeing all of these old allies from Jack's journeys make a comeback to help him finish his quest? Hell yeah! But we don't spend enough time with said allies during their final scenes, Jack's long-awaited return to the past is just too sudden to take it in, Aku's destruction is anticlimactic, and the resolution spends too much time on this romance that meant nothing to this series until the last few episodes. This conclusion just feels rushed, and I feel that a major reason for that is because of how much time was padded out to build up Jack's relationship with Ashi. And really, the series didn't need a love interest. It lasted 4 years without needing one, Aku disguise notwithstanding, and the fact that they never built any up until the last few episodes makes this seem completely out of left field. I know romance makes for a profitable draw to media, but when did Tartakovsky need that before? I'm convinced that this is all part of some executive meddling. Another small issue I have with this season is how it's turned into an adult show. The old show is able to get away with all sorts of mutilations, as long as the character getting mutilated was a robot, alien, or shadowy monster that had oil or green jello in place of red blood. It made for an effective way to pay homage to samurai films and similar mutilations without betraying the kids' show restrictions. But now that it's on Adult Swim, we have red blood flying all over the place, some occasional naughty language, and some kinky fan service. On one hand, it kind of makes sense, due to the original show's target audience now having grown up, and presumably being ready for some more mature themes. But at the same time, it seems to be taking more advantage of this than it needs to. It can really rub the gore and fan service in your face at times. My main problem is this. What if a young child starts watching the original series and wants to see the conclusion, but has to wait some years for it? Granted, they might be one of those kids, and watch it regardless, but will they be able to handle it at such a young age? I kind of just wish they kept the family-friendly nature of the original series, but I suppose that complaint is kind of petty compared to the Ashi one. Gore or no gore, if they at least gave it the conclusion it deserved, I wouldn't be complaining. But regardless of its missteps at the end, this is still a show that I will look back on fondly. There truly was no other show like it, and it is easily one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows. Yeah, I know, that's exactly what I said about Courage the Cowardly Dog, but it still applies. So with that, I give Samurai Jack a 9 out of 10. This is Mash It and Smash It, and it's time to return to the more distant past, and review some more old animated films. Watcha! Gotta get back to the past, mash it and smash it!